Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley, founder and owner of GC Realty. Mark, how are we doing?
Not bad. With all of these, inventory's been tight lately, but things are starting to kind of recycle themselves. We're seeing some distressed properties. I actually received a request for a couple of receiverships this week. So I don't know if this is a sign of things to come or just people are giving up on some properties, but I know you were talking about earlier home path properties. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with that.
Yeah, so, back when we were doing more on the south side, this was a little bit more relevant. The home path property is property that has been foreclosed on. That is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's either Freddie or Fannie. One of them owns the property.
Yeah, it's Fannie.
Yep. And so then most times they are in the MLS. Sometimes they're not. But if you just go to homepath.com, you can go see what the inventory is available. So I bring it up because for the first time in probably 2 years, I made an offer on a home path one earlier today. We'll see if we get it, but it's right in my neck of the woods in Jeff Park.
Well, you could see properties coming up too, if I'm pretty sure, right?
Correct. I mean, the advantage are most of them are on the MLS, but some of them are not. So you do see a little bit more inventory. You get to see what's coming, as you alluded to. And then also you just get to know that, okay, you might not have noticed it on the MLS, but then you notice it here that it's foreclosed property. It needs some work, right? Like that's the right pond for me to be fishing in.
They do get a window of time owner occupied, correct? Is that usually how those
correct?
Because their goal is to promote home ownership. So owner occupied or house hackers or whatnot, usually you stand the best chance at these type of properties.
Correct. And you'll usually see that in either the broker notes or the MLS list, and it'll say, until that's like 14 days, we'll only accept offers from owner occupied, right? And then when they don't get anything and it sits, that's when they open the door to investors.
That's all. That inventory is coming up again. Someone the other day also mentioned to me the HUD website starting to get more inventory on it as well too. So I'm not sure if any of these things are all signs of things to come, but at least there are other opportunities that other people are probably not looking at except our listeners. So maybe check those out. The HUDhomes.com, I believe it is.
Yeah, and you also got the Cook County Land Bank too, right? Like, there's a lot out there that we kind of take for granted, and they're not going to drastically change your business or your business model, but give them a sneak peek. Maybe you steal a deal or two, and it's good. Take it.
Yeah, no, for sure. For most of us, if you get a handful of deals a year, and this is one of them, this is just an easier path that no one else is looking at. Especially, if you've been in the game for a long time, you might be looking at these things. But anyone new coming in to look for an investment this year or in the last 12 months, they probably are not as savvy to know about these different avenues.
Yeah, I don't think I've been on the Home Path website since COVID, so shame on me.
Yeah, I know. So you just, I'm going to you can set up reminders, I'm pretty sure, too, on there. You can set up search criteria to email you.
Yeah. So, all right, let's pivot here. What's the housing provider tip of the week?
All right. So the source of income is being added to the Illinois protected class this year. Now, source of income was something that was already a Chicago law for the fair housing. I believe it was Cook County as well, too. And then Naperville's had it for about 10 years now. But basically means that you cannot discriminate against how people earn their income so long as they can prove it. So as far as this is a big thing, conversation around Section 8. So Section 8, a lot of people, when I first got into this, basically the listing just said no Section 8 housing. Sorry, no Section 8. And that is something you cannot do. Like that is, you're just asking for trouble if you even talk like that. So, across the entire state as of January 1st, 2023, you can no longer just simply outright say, I will not rent to Section 8 or I will not rent to somebody with maybe a different subsidy, or maybe their income is coming from not just subsidies, but maybe it's alimony. Or the one that's a kicker that I do struggle with, but this is the reality of it, is unemployment. You can't even, you have to count somebody's unemployment towards their income as well too, so long as they can prove it. So these things you got to keep in mind. And I actually invited on, and they replied back to me onto the show here, is more of a tenants' right organization down in the south suburbs that I'd love to have them on, and we could ask them these tough questions and at least hear it from their point of view. So, but in the meantime, source of income, make sure you're not discriminating. You have to make sure that you're counting all income that can be proven against it. And another one of those was, tips and stuff like that. That's another kind of protected person that falls into that class. You can't just say, because you get tips and they're inconsistent, I can't count that revenue. You have to figure out some sort of formula for averages or whatnot. So, but yeah, protect yourself. Make sure Fair housing is one of those things that you're guilty until proven innocent, and it's pain in the butt to prove yourself innocent and jump through a lot of hoops and a lot of time. So just be careful and try to avoid put yourself in those circumstances.
Yep. Hey, so just one quick thing there, because this is going to come up as hopefully this will help at least one of our listeners. When someone calls you and says, "Do you accept Section 8?" The answer is yes. We accept it as income, just like we would any other income. We still have the requirements of, and whatever your requirements are for market, 650 credit score, 2.5 times the rental income, that is the answer. You can't just say, "Oh, I don't know." Like, you have to be very clear. Mark, I'm sure it's happened to you multiple times. There's people just calling to catch you. And when you say, "Yes, you do," and they just hang up right away. Like, you're literally people just calling to catch you in that. And now you have a legal thing on your stance when you're not even, it's just, I don't want to say it, you just didn't know any better.
Yeah, the secret shoppers are out there.
That is the answer.
The secret shoppers are out there. Some of the secret shoppers work for attorneys. Some of them work for the tenant's rights. Some of them work for IDFPR. So be careful on all aspects of license law or fair housing.
All right, cool. All right. Today's guest, he's bringing some energy today. He's ready to go. So today we got a real estate investor. He's also a realtor with Exit Strategy Realty. Very passionate about the city of Chicago. Currently has a portfolio of 9 units, both in Belmont Cragin and Back the Yards. And we're going to touch on some of the good and also some of the struggles and some of the oh crap moments that we had to deal with. In addition to his real estate expertise, he's also the founder of the Lakeview Run Club. Fun little fact for you runners out there. It's the second biggest run club in Chicago by weekly attendance. So nice job getting that thing off the ground. But without further ado, Ben Sussman, welcome to the show. Ben, how are we doing today?
I am so good. Tom, Mark, I am fully stoked. And honestly, I'm a huge fan of this show. And the one quick kudos before we get into the thick of it is I want to give y'all so much credit for the stoke and positive attention y'all bring to the city of Chicago. Something that really stuck with me that y'all said is the rest of the country really, poo-poos Chicago, but there's so many people killing it, and y'all are doing such an amazing job putting the spotlight and also just painting the city in such a positive way and showing there are ways to kill it and make money here. So longtime fan, and I really, really appreciate all of the positive energy and stoke y'all bring to this awesome city that we all love called Chicago.
I love it. I'm blushing. You are too, Tom. I can see.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We appreciate the kind words. We'll just do a full 45-second teaser clip of that.
Yeah,
that'll be
that's all we need.
The episode. So,
Fair enough.
All right, so Ben, just talk to us about getting started, right? We're going to talk about, some of these investments, some of the, these situations you got in, but take us a step back from there. Why real estate? What attracted you to, in investing, and just talk to us how you got that first deal under belt. But I guess even before that, just leading up to it.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So the story. So I remember March, April 2020 during COVID, and, the markets were crashing, and I had been a renter my whole life since graduating college. And I thought, is now a good time to buy a condo? Should I invest in real estate? Should I have, my toes dabbling in that arena? And I just Googled one day, podcasts and learning resources for buying real estate. Like as many other people's journeys came to be, stumbled across Bigger Pockets, got deep down the rabbit hole with their podcasts. And I mean, pretty much I was hooked from there, and I knew I wanted to achieve some sort of financial freedom through real estate, and then more than happy to keep digging down deeper into how that journey started and how I took action there. If y'all would like.
What do you do? What's your background?
Great question. So I majored in finance for my undergrad, started my career in investment banking, worked there for 1.5 years, worked in corporate strategy and operations for big tech. And I've now been in the big tech business and strategy world for about 4 years now.
Cool. All right. So Ben, we decide we want to start, we read Bigger Pocket, but a lot of people get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard to say actually doing this now. Talk to us through that moment. Right? What was the first property? What areas were you looking at? And how are you actually able to pull the trigger?
That's such a good question. So anyone out there that's listening or in the educational phase of, their real estate investing journey, 2 things that I really want y'all at home listening to think about that really helped me get over the hurdle to take action are, 1, you can truly figure anything out as you go. The lights are never going to all be green. there are resources, and like you will figure things out along the way, I promise you. And I'd say two things that kind of helped me with my own personal journey there are, one, like running a marathon, and in the running journey, I had no idea how I was going to run 26.2 miles. And you just realize you put yourself in the situation and you figure things out along the way. Two, you know, essentially with this run club that I started, I had absolutely no idea whatsoever how to build a community and how that would work. And you just figure it out one step at a time. So truly just have faith in yourself for figuring it out. And two, the other thing I would say that really hit home for me, and I heard in a podcast when I was in the educational phase of the real estate investing journey, is there are risks in taking action, but there are also so many risks in not taking action. And there's also a lot of risks, and depending on one source of income, be that from your W-2 or however you make your money as your primary source of income. And two, the risks of not taking action are not having a nest egg to fall back on when you retire, not having a financial cushion if you, God forbid, or someone you love gets sick, or also not having the flexibility to take some time off work if you don't enjoy it. So analyze the risks first off of not taking action, acknowledge that they're there. That tough love, the risks are there, acknowledge them. If you're not acknowledging them, be honest with yourself and see that they're there. And two, truly have faith that it's not going to be perfect, but you will figure it out along the way.
So love that advice. And I love the risk of not doing anything, right? Well, Stephen Covey, one of them did the interviews of everyone on their deathbed, and they all said they wish they would have basically taken more risks. I wish I would have done this. Like, that was the biggest regret, was never, higher net worth. It was the shots that were never taken, right? And that wasn't just from one person. It was from interviewing hundreds of people. So agree wholeheartedly there. So Ben, we get started. Well, what neighborhoods are we looking in? And let's talk about the first property, just the excitement of walking in, saying, I'm going to do this, put it under contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So one quick thing on Stephen Covey. If I'm not mistaken, another regret most people have is working too much. So that's another way that investing in real estate can also not have you regretting things at the end of your life on your deathbed. But bringing it back to your question. So neighborhoods I was looking at. So to be honest with you, I was all over the place at first, and I was a big believer in the concept of investing on the path of progress, wanting to be in areas that are, getting attention and funding and development from all different angles. And I came upon Belmont Cragin, where you truly, Tom, are from, right around the Hanson Park area, as a area that is receiving so much positive attention and positive momentum and growth. More than happy to get into why I believe that, but in a nutshell, you have a lot of the positive momentum from Logan Square and Hermosa, slightly to the east of Belmont Cragin, pushing that neighborhood up. And I believe that there are just so many solid fundamentals driving that market and making it a great place to invest. So that's where my first investment property was located.
Okay. Talk us through it, right? Like you find it, you like the area, we're looking at properties. I'm assuming you walked a couple at this point. Mm-hmm. Just talk to us about the emotional side of, okay, right, my numbers, oh man, this works. Like, I should do something here.
Were you a realtor already? Were you out looking on your own, or were you working with somebody?
No, I was working with someone. Shout out to Nick Liebert from Exit Strategy. I was working with him at the time. Fantastic mentor and realtor. I was walking properties with him at the time. And I remember running the numbers and thinking, oh, wow. So this property has 2 units vacant, 2 units that are going to come with inherited tenants. If I think I can rent at market rate the entire 4-unit property, if I can rent 3 of the units for $3,200, then I can cover my mortgage, taxes, and insurance of $2,400 and also live in one of the units for free. And it really dawned on me that, wow, like in this time when the real estate market was red hot and deals were not to be found, I was staring at the numbers straight in front of my face. And in that moment, there was so much doubt of, what if the roof breaks? What if a tenant stops paying? What if the toilets get, backed up at 2 a.m.? What if I can't do it? What if something inhibits the cash flow or income that puts me in a huge financial hole, but when I was staring at that situation, I mean, ultimately, you just have to decide that, like I said before, things aren't going to be perfect, and you have to have trust that, if you take that risk, certain things and headaches will come up, and there are always going to be struggles in real estate. But I'm willing to take those struggles and those risks because I know that the risks of not taking that leap of faith are going to end up, like you said, haunting me, or end up, creating a bigger downside than not taking that leap of faith. And so I ultimately decided to do it. And I'm more than happy to talk about the next steps if y'all would like and want to keep digging down on how I went on acquiring and, moving in that property.
So yeah, let's because I know we have another property where we had a couple more horror stories, but going through this one and being your first,
yes,
going through just the inspection, the financing, was there anything, any of those moments where like, oh man, this is not going to happen?
Yes, absolutely. So there was this moment where we got the zoning certificate from the seller's realtor, and I saw that there was a non-conforming unit. I was talking to my lender and then putting it into my debt to income ratio, only including 2, because I was living in one of the 4 units, and only including 2 of the units in there could inhibit, the ability to underwrite and create that loan. And I really thought, I remember having a conversation with my lender about a week before we were supposed to close. And I just asked him straight up, like, dude, tell me, are we going to close on this deal? And he just said, it's honestly up in the air, 50-50 shot in the dark. We'll have to see what happens. And yeah, from there, you just have to have faith, as woo-woo as it sounds, that if it's meant to be, and you keep going through the motions and you keep taking action, what's meant to be will transpire. And so worried about what I could worry about, had to let go of all the things that weren't in my control. And eventually I got, very fortunate, and the deal went through. And that was where the real bug and the thirst and hunger and drive to keep expanding my real estate portfolio came from. And I'm super grateful that loan went through and that property came to be. And plenty of other headaches that I can talk about from that building, but overall, incredibly grateful to have had such a positive experience from the start there.
What other things for that building did you not see coming that might have affected you, cost you, or things that you just know to look out for now on other buildings?
Mark, okay, so get a load of this. I remember this call so vividly. I was actually on a run, and I get this call from one of my tenants that there was sewage coming out from the toilets and the showers in all of the units there. And the main line from the property going out into the plumbing and sewers in the street fully broke. And A, had to get someone out there ASAP so their units wouldn't flood. And B, found out that in order to fix this main line, they had to excavate the pipe, replace it, and then refill concrete back over that pipe. And long story short, more than happy to give specific numbers if y'all would like, but that in and of itself killed the cash flow and put me pretty deep in the red for the first 8 to 10 months of owning that property. Could I have seen that coming? Sure. When you have the inspection within the purchase and acquisition process, you definitely want to see what does the plumbing look like, and sometimes they can stick cameras down the main lines or down the pipes of the plumbing, but I honestly don't know if I could have seen that one coming.
It was one of those things that you have to react fast, and then sometimes you're at the mercy of the city, depending where that break is at, and you got it. It turns into a tenant nightmare as well too. If you have to keep them not using their toilet for a few days, and they think they're owed something at that point. Tom, do you with your buildings, do you put cameras down the line? Do you just kind of count it as a worst case scenario? Like how do you handle that, or what do you advise people?
Yeah, so typically what we do, if I'm someone's agent, I'm telling them 100% you need to scope the sewer.
Yep.
Right? Like that is a no. I don't care what they're charging you, do it. Like, so that's my, now, do we always do it? Like we're walking to something where our rehab budget, we're figuring out on the fly, we got to make a cash offer quick. And it's like, is the rehab 400 or 450? So it's that 20 grand expense is kind of like, we don't have time to say, hey, we got to get someone out here to do this. Right, where it's all just kind of, we know we'll get hit with it 1 out of X amount of times, right? Because we're not sitting there going into a full, getting down to the penny. Usually we got to be very quick and nimble with what we offer. But if you're not in that situation, you're just buying what I'd call traditionally, then 1,000% you need, yes, scope the sewer line.
So Ben, you got whacked with digging up the line. You had to replace it. Then you had to do some landscaping probably. Like it's always, it's never good. Talk to
the nice part of asking for that repair too. He knows that buyer, that seller knows that like the next, like he's not getting away with it, right? Like if you had to play Monday morning quarterback, like it's not like an iffy, like no, take it or leave it. Like he knows, like all right, either I do it for this guy or the next guy.
Yeah. How the tenants react to that? How flexible were they with you on that? What'd you have to learn from that?
That's a great question. Honestly, I'm incredibly fortunate that the tenants that I had placed in that property were so understanding and just nice. But I was going through the process of, do I have to put these people in a hotel? What do I tell them if they literally can't use the bathroom? Like shower, sure, maybe you can get away with it for a day or two, but with regards to using the actual bathrooms and the toilets, like that was a ticking time bomb there. So I worked with the tenants and essentially said, like, I will put you up in a hotel or Airbnb if I cannot get a plumber out here to fix the surface level issues by the end of the day today. Please work with me and be patient. Like I truly want to do right by you all and give you a safe, clean place to live. And I ended up actually getting a plumber out there that day that was able to somehow make the toilets functional. Within that day, it was pretty much just putting a Band-Aid under a huge flesh wound, but was able to get those toilets functional for a few days before the actual sewer line repairman came out and fixed all of that.
I like that. I like the stop gap. So talk to me about this. Is your first property, you're self-managed.
Yeah.
What about any other kind of hiccups with tenants or any lessons learned about just being a landlord or what really worked, or what do you think is a secret sauce you might have?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things I want to say there. So the first thing is, and I'll talk about this a little bit later when we go into the back of the yards properties that I got, but one thing that I truly wish someone told me in the beginning of my real estate investing journey is, well, rather I'll say this. This is a very common message within the real estate investing educational space, and I've heard this a lot on different podcasts, not this podcast, truly, but other ones, is when you're out there and you don't have that deal flow pipeline and you're trying to look for a good deal in a hot or semi-hot market, you need to be willing to take on headaches and fix other people's problems and take on problems that other people aren't willing to deal with. And so here I was all gung-ho and listening to these podcasts and thinking, okay, if I want to find a good deal and I want to make something happen and I want that, built-in equity spread, essentially buying something very under market value, I'm going to have to fix someone's problems. And if I were to go out there and give someone a piece of advice, or rather the message I wish I had someone tell me at the beginning is, get those base hits at the beginning. Your deals don't need to be home runs. Get your foot in the game and take those big risks, and sure, fix those problems that other people don't want to deal with, but don't do that until you have cash flow from other properties to support that. A. B, wait until you have a lot of cash reserves in the bank, and also wait till you have that network and that confidence to deal with those problems, those plumbers, those electricians, those handymen, the contractors. That message of fixing other people's headaches and problems is something that is very much touted out there on podcasts. And I know a lot of other friends I've met at meetups that have very much fallen into that same trap. So if I were to do it all over again, or if I was in that beginning phase of investing in real estate, I would 100% recommend go for those base hits. Don't go for that crazy good deal that is going to cause some big headache down the line. So that's kind of my advice there.
Great. All right. So you went from Belmont Cragin, halfway across the city to back of the yards. Why'd you move all the way down there? I know that's probably a similar neighborhood and like where there might be an upcoming opportunity, but why not go deeper in Belmont?
That's a great question. And if I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable there, it was lack of patience. There was a complete lack of inventory in Belmont Cragin. I loved the neighborhood there, and a pattern that I've noticed is a lot of people tend to pass down their buildings or their homes in that neighborhood from generation to generation. And just due to that, I think that there's a very sparse amount of inventory in that area. And at that point, I very much had the real estate bug, really wanted to continue growing my portfolio. And I after 4 or 5 months of waiting for a good deal to come on the market, I said, all right, I need to start exploring other areas so I can continue to ride what I thought were a lot of tailwinds and positive things happening in the real estate market at that time.
How long did you wait between closing on the first deal and starting even to look for the next deal? And then how long from closing to closing?
That's a great question. So I went from closing on my first deal to wanting to buy a second deal. I'd say I went about 6 months. I had such a positive experience with the tenants in that property and just collecting, besides that main sewer line breaking, just maintenance, etc. I had such a positive experience there that 6 months into the process of owning that first building, I was looking for my second acquisition.
Got it. So real quick, has your expectation changed, right? I want to pull back some of the things you just said, going back a minute or two. Mm-hmm. Yes, that first deal, like we all want to be on that podcast saying, oh, it was a perfect burr. I did this, like, yeah, right. Because that's what you hear. And so that's like the expectation. And it's the same thing. Like it's not reality, right? It's not, nor should it be. So it's great. It's a great advice you just gave there. But now, selfishly, did your expectations start to change on this second property? We're like, this is easy. Maybe I could be able to pull out all my cash on this deal.
Absolutely not. Such a good point. Things never go as planned. And so I'll paint a picture of how it went on this second property once I closed. So I remember me being all young and naive and sending these letters as the, books tell you to do and saying, hey, I'm your new landlord. This is how you should contact me. This is how you should pay your rent. And I remember getting no response from pretty much actually every single tenant in that second property. And then the last tenant that I couldn't get a hold of, I ended up calling him like 10 times before he answered. And he answers his phone. I remember it so vividly. It's truly a huge wake-up moment for me in my real estate investing journey. And this guy answers the phone and he's like, is this Ben? Is this a fuck? Not to keep the language,
No, you're good.
PG, but as it was, this guy's like, is this fucking Ben? Are you the fucking owner of this piece of shit building? If I see your fucking ass around this fucking property, I will beat your ass so bad you will not be able to walk. Don't you ever fucking try and collect rent from me, ever. Hangs up the phone. And for further context of what I got myself into there. So this particular tenant was involved in a gang in the neighborhood, and I also found out was selling a lot of drugs out of his unit in that property, and couldn't get a hold of him. Didn't want to go by the property to collect rent or try to deal with him face to face, and I soon realized that we were in a situation where we were in a eviction moratorium and still going through the thick of it with COVID and whatnot, being landlords. And essentially what I had to do, and Tom, huge shout out to you because both of you have talked about this on the podcast. I remember specifically having a conversation with you, is go the cash for keys route, treat this like a business, remove your emotion from the equation. And after a lot of tough goes with dealing with this guy who was incredibly hostile, and pretty much every single conversation I had with this guy over the phone was A, threatening to beat the shit out of me or just take very violent action against me. B, being very blunt and stating he had absolutely no intention to move out whatsoever. And C, not being able to take action through the legal system for the foreseeable future due to the inability to evict, was a humongous wake-up call for me.
Well, can you step back though? Were there any red flags in the due diligence? Like you walked the building, your inspector went out there, you couldn't get, was there access issues? Did the seller in hindsight give you any signs that, man, I'm trying to turn upon my problems off of you? Like, no, there should have been things that happened early on that you weren't blindsided by that call.
1,000,000% Mark. And I think that I thought that I had to take on those headaches to get a good deal. And that's just what you had to do, is fix hard problems. But one, like you said, on the money, access issues. It was extremely, extremely hard. We had to reschedule the inspection and the final walkthrough actually before buying the property due to access issues for this property, or access issues to that unit and this particular tenant. Estoppel agreements, I don't know if you want me to go into that a little bit more as a housing provider tip, but I 100% should have had an estoppel agreement within the purchase price process.
And explain to our listeners, what is that?
Yeah, so an estoppel agreement is essentially a document where you look through you essentially state that all of the information provided on the tenant with regards to their ability to pay, their employment status, their lease, etc., is all factual. And essentially, like, if you want to go back after purchasing a property, if you get screwed over, essentially from what I understand, by the seller of a property due to non-factual statements due to a tenant that gives you problems, that holds up as a basis of fact in court. And I don't know if y'all want to expand upon that, but it's a legal process and exercise that I've put into place on every other property I've bought since then.
How many units is this building? 5 units?
4 units for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say too, y'all had a guest on your podcast previously, Joey, who house hacked in Canaryville. Yes, same neighborhood. And a tip that I remember him saying that I'd love to resurface is buy a building vacant if you can. Cash for keys is a phenomenal tool that I highly, highly, highly recommend using rather than going through the eviction process, because you're probably going to end up spending a few $1,000s on, legal fees and expenses. 2, just the fact that it is so slow going in Chicago and through Cook County's court systems, you're going to lose what I'd imagine is thousands of dollars in lost rent. And also just like, if you have cash for keys and you're giving your tenant money to get out, odds are they're not going to trash your unit nearly as much as someone that you're giving the boot via the legal system. And so I cannot express enough, if you're going to buy a property, try if you can to buy it vacant. If you can't buy it vacant, screen the tenants, use all the legal levers that you have within your toolkit, like an estoppel agreement. And also, just really, really make sure you do your due diligence there, because the tenants are the lifeblood of your business. And it is so vital to make sure you do it right.
I want to break down, so you were successful in Belmont Cragin, and then you went to Back of the Yards. And I really think, from our standpoint, historically managing both places, it's very 2 different tenant bases. The tenants in either neighborhood, from a standpoint, you might be, a totally different class of tenants in that sense, mm-hmm. as far as your collection rates and all that stuff. So, did you account for that risk when going from one neighborhood to the other as far as worst case scenarios?
No, not at all. And I'm going to be totally honest with myself there. Not in the slightest bit. I was young and naive, and I honestly ran numbers as follows. What could a property get in rent? What are the mortgage, taxes, insurance? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I can collect and cash flow so much in Back of the Yards in this neighborhood that I think has a lot of positive momentum. Let's go in there and let's buy a property. I did not factor for collection rates or tenant base at all. And the last thing I'll say on that is, and I'll delve into this a little further as we go on, but I am a true believer, as I've owned 9 units total in Back of the Yards. There are so many good people that are honest, hardworking, just want to get by, pay their rent, and are genuine good tenants, amazing tenants actually. But with that being said, the risk factor there of having a much more troublesome tenant is definitely higher in that area. And it is something I did not account for at all, which was very stupid of me.
No, I appreciate you being vulnerable here. So let's go back to this tenant, right? So this guy's telling you to F off. We're going through the eviction, cash for keys. And I know there's mixed emotion between housing providers on cash for keys.
Were you scared though? I'm sorry, Tom. I can't. Like, were you scared? Like, tell us. Like, were you thinking about calling the police? Like, were you like, people can handle that any different way. Some people can roll out from the back. Other people would be like, "Oh my gosh, does he know where I live?" Like,
yeah, I guess so. Who's your first call after that?
Yeah.
Definitely not my parents. I will tell you that. Definitely not my parents. And I was very scared. I'll tell you, I had those exact thoughts. You hit the nail on the head. Does this guy know where I live? Checking Google, thinking, is there any way someone can find my name and then find my address of where I live? How exposed am I to like someone coming over to where I am and beating the shit out of me? And so, no, the risk was very much there. And I'll tell you a couple things. So one of the things that made it really scary to me was I called an attorney to see what my avenues could be going down the legal route. And a highly rated attorney told me, I'm not dealing with this guy if he's affiliated with a gang and he has posed to be a very real violent threat to you. I'm not taking on this case. I'll never take on a case like that. And I'm like, am I on my own? Is the legal system going to abandon me? Are these smarter, much older adults that are very experienced and scared to deal with this situation telling me that I'm essentially screwed? And so, no, definitely a lot of anxiety around the situation, and definitely had some sleepless nights, to put it nicely.
Did you own the property in an LLC or in your name personally?
In the person. I owned it in my name at first. I did not buy it under an LLC. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand is, unless you have an LLC with a lot of reserves, it is much easier, especially as you're starting out, to buy a property in your name and then roll it into an LLC.
Yeah, for sure. It just offers more protection in a scenario like that, where you have your legal agent as the address where they go to your attorney's office all day, and not your home address where now they could see who that title and the tax bill is going to and all that stuff. So,
yep.
Little tip.
Yep.
All right. So how do we get out of this situation?
Yeah.
Right.
Sting operation.
No sting operation.
Did you hire a counter gang go after him?
Yeah, Latin Kings for hire here.
Yeah.
That might have been a lot smarter, more creative, cheaper way to get him out. Wish you would have told me that, Tom, at the time I called you. But no, so I guess what I'll do is I'll say how I got that situation resolved, and then I'd love to kind of just go through a failure resume of what I've had with that property and just investing, so that you all can kind of see real estate investing is not easy. And there are so many people that beat their chests on podcasts or on their social media and say, look at me, I'm crushing this burr, I'm crushing these deals, I'm expanding and getting 20 units by 25 years old, and I have $20,000 a year in cash, or a month in cash flow. And that's very much not the case. And real estate investing is a very hard thing, especially at the beginning. And I just want to spread that message and say, I really went through it at the beginning and I made so many mistakes. Like, this story is only the surface. And I truly want to say, you always come out the other side if you stick with it. If you're out there and going through the pain and the grind and the suffering in your investing journey, like, truly stick with it. It will be worth it, and you will make it out on the other side. But with that being said, so cash for keys. So I ended up hiring an attorney that deals with evictions, and I ended up essentially just going through the negotiation process of saying, would you take X amount of dollars to move out? And I offered him 2 months rent, which ended up being $1,600. And he ended up taking that. And he said, I want a month to move out. A month went by. I really didn't know what was going to happen, honestly. And then 2 days before he was supposed to move out, I got a call from my lawyer saying he wanted another 3 weeks. And I asked my lawyer, I'm like, no, I don't. Why does he need 7 weeks? He's been living there for months rent free. And he said, you have no other option. You have to give him these additional 3 weeks. Waited 3 weeks. He ended up moving out, and that was it.
All right, let's talk about the transaction, the stare down. Who's handled the money, changing lots? Like, that's always a funky scenario.
Absolutely. So I hired an armed processor who came out there with the cash in an envelope and kind of went dark for an hour. He called me. He said he was there. Didn't hear from him for an hour, and then he called me back and said, "It's done. I have the keys." Had a locksmith sitting there. Highly, 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 if anyone else is going through an eviction or a cash for keys move out process, have a locksmith on site. You do not want that guy that man, woman, person turning in their keys, having that lock, even the same lock there for an hour or two, having that person with a copy of their key go right back in because you're at square zero, or very much behind where you were. And that's how it went down.
I pictured you like showing up with a mustache and like like disguise. Like, no, I work for them.
Exactly.
So you got him out. Listen, I'll tell you, like $1,600. You had to wait a little time. Like that's not bad.
Oh yeah,
it's not the end of the world. I guess it's probably painful for you, and there's a lot of other fears and concerns, man. But I guess if they called me up and said they wanted 3 more weeks, I would have said, all right, make it 3,200. Just get them out there tomorrow. I might have handled it a little differently and even offered more just to solve the problem faster. But if you got away with that dollar amount, that's not. I thought you were going to come with some $5,000-$10,000 type solution there, but that's crazy. So did you secure the property, change the locks? What about were you worried about breaking back in? Did you do anything to protect the property in the upcoming weeks after that?
That's a great question. So I actually ended up having security cameras installed throughout that whole wait out period of having this person move out. And so I was worried, honestly, about having this person break back in. But besides having security cameras up there, just having proof that this person didn't live there and having that video objective proof, like I just couldn't imagine what else I could do besides just hope for the best.
All right, so let's talk about, so it sounds like this is not the end of the list of failures, though. Why don't you just rattle off here, if you don't mind being vulnerable, just, these were the things that went wrong on this property. And before you go through there, a friendly reminder, he's still alive here. He's still kicking it. Like, things are okay. You can get through anything that happens.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you giving me the credit, thinking I'm alive and doing at least all right. But all right, so to rattle off just really quick, and feel free to stop me and drill down into any of these failures if you want. But first off,
I'm all out there.
I thought the violations on this property were going to be small, and I just had to replace a few beams with this porch. It was a 2-story, second-story porch, 100 feet long, and this was at a time when the lumber market was out of control. Essentially heard from the city that I had to tear this entire porch down and rebuild it from scratch, and had to figure out what I was going to do with the 2 tenants I had on the top floor at the time, because it was the points of entry and exit for both of those top units at the time. And also, I'm not going to lie, I looked into taking a construction loan for this deck, and it ended up being like a 12% 10-year loan, and that would have absolutely killed any margin for cash flow error I had. So I ended up draining I had about $1,500 in the bank, all in personal funds, real estate reserves, everything, 13 units at the time, after going into a deal with a contractor to fix this porch. And so I felt like I was staring into the abyss and had pretty much no money, had all my money tied up in these properties, tore down this porch, had no idea if it was even going to clear the violations or if the city was going to slap some other things on me. Let's see, what other things do I have to talk about? And another one of the properties that I have in Back of the Yards, I had to go through 2 evictions and another cash for keys scenario. So had 3 extremely uncooperative tenants in that other property. I essentially tried to sell this Laughlin property 5 times, had the deal to sell that die 5 times. That deal, and Tom, we had some conversations with that at the time, but that deal died 3 hours before we were supposed to be at the closing table. And I was trying to buy another house hack to live in at the time, contingent upon me being able to close on selling this this property in Back of the Yards, and spent another stupid thing is I spent thousands of dollars on, architect blueprints and an inspection, et cetera, on this deal that died. And essentially I had to scramble in figuring out what my housing situation was going to be, because I fully banked on being able to move into selling that Laughlin property, moving into this new house hack and getting my life underway. So didn't know what I was going to do housing wise, had no money in the bank, barely any money in the bank to cover my expenses, owning these 3 buildings, and ended up figuring that one out as well though. Had absolutely trashed units after I had that tenant get out, and the other tenants that I had to evict and offer cash for keys for, not having the money at the time to fix those up. Let's see, what else?
How'd you handle it though? How did you were dealt these properties all needed some work? Were you doing the work yourself? Were you negotiating with contractors? Like
Yeah.
There's a lot of cash out of your pocket that I don't think, based on what you said so far, you expected. Like, how'd you handle that cash flow in it while almost running out of cash?
Honestly, Mark, it wasn't pretty, and there was no clean cut solution. But essentially what I had to come to the realization of is I'm going to be funneling all the money from my W-2 day job into my real estate for a while, and that's okay. And I fully expected that I would have to, have a learning curve. I'll say this. The money I spent fixing these properties that I spent on my job is money better spent on an MBA. I never got a master's degree, better, and that's kind of how I viewed it. But I poured a lot of my money from my day job into my properties and did that over time. And also, I just kind of had to take the repairs chunk by chunk, step by step. So I repaired 1 unit and actually had... shout out to Nacho, aka Juan Ignacio Gonzalez. He's absolutely amazing. He has legacy construction in Back of the Yards, all locally sourced people, and he is doing a tremendous amount to shape that neighborhood. But I had him do some of the work for just 1 unit, rented that out, sat on it, tried to build up my cash reserves and just save money from my job again. After a couple of months, saved that money, was able to then fix up one of the other units that was just sitting vacant. And it, over the span of a year, ended up fixing 3 trashed units. And it wasn't a pretty option, but I just kind of was in the middle of it, had to acknowledge it, suffer through it. And now I'm on the other side, and I'll say it sucked and it felt like eating glass, but it truly led to some awesome opportunities, and also just put me in a solid spot owning some solid fixed up properties.
Yeah, and let's talk about the one you sold, right? Like, after all this, like, we still came out all right here. Is that...
Yes, sir. Yeah, to be completely transparent. So the numbers were, bought this property for $185,000, all in all put $50,000 into it, and then ended up selling it for $290,000. So one thing that I've heard people say a lot is real estate's an incredibly forgiving asset class. Like, there are a lot of people that lose their pants in the stock market, GameStop, or there are a lot of people just in general that lose their pants in the stock market, in crypto investing or any other asset class. Real estate investing is a very, very forgiving asset class.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. So we get out from under that. Talk to us about where are you now, right? Are you looking to buy another $185,000 property in Back of the Yards and saying, you know what, I know what I'm getting into, I'm going to keep doing this? Are you looking elsewhere? Like, how have these experiences shaped what's going to happen to you over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years?
Such a good question. So right now, I'm actually under contract for a 2-unit brick building right by Fullerton in Milwaukee and Logan Square. Just looking for a place for me to house hack. I love that area, and I think that a little bit of the softening we've seen in the market has created some really good opportunities to invest in some areas and where you once weren't able to make house hacking numbers work, and now make those house hacking numbers work.
I know this is funny because you mentioned this one, and I saw it under contract, and I wondered, like, man, I wonder if Ben did that. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. That was me. I took it under contract. Yes, sir. and very, very good insight that you gave me.
We had a call, and then 6 hours later, the Redfin notification was done. I was like, oh, I wonder if that was it.
Boom. Yeah, no, saw it, talked to you, Tom, and then put that offer in and dude, made those moves. That was me. But anyway, so I will be house hacking that property. As far as back of the yards, I still think that neighborhood has so much potential, and I'm definitely not done investing in there. And what I will say is I will definitely try to buy properties vacant there if I can. I will definitely screen the crap out of the tenants if I have to inherit them. And I think a lot of the positive momentum down there is like Invest Southwest has so many plans to revitalize 47th Street, and right on Ashland and 47th, they have a huge development that they're trying to put into that neighborhood. And between that, a lot of the cool coffee shops and bars that have opened up there, there's the Plant, which is a sustainable business model incubator for businesses based out of back of the yards. Fun fact, there's a vegan fungi, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos backed like dairy alternatives company that is based and headquartered in back of the yards as well. I'm blanking on the name. I can send it to you if you want to put that in the show notes later. And there's also like, I know plans on 47th and Justine, there are plans for a yoga studio and a really, really cool coffee shop to open up there. And there's just so much positive momentum in that neighborhood. And I think people would be doing themselves a big disservice if they didn't acknowledge that as a very viable neighborhood to do well in as an investor, proceeding with caution.
Awesome.
And then going forward, not to rant on too much here, but I mean, me personally, I at the beginning of my real estate investing journey, listened to Bigger Pockets and thought like, I got to get to 5,000 units. I got to syndicate. I got to absolutely crush it and build the biggest, baddest portfolio and empire out there. And I've been listening to another podcast out there. His name's Coach Carson, and he actually wrote the book How to Retire Early with Real Estate for Bigger Pockets Publishing. And him and his podcast and his overall thesis is quality over quantity with units. And if you remove a lot of the debt over time on your properties, you can make a killing and build up a lot of equity and a ton of cash flow having 20 very, very solid units. And so, and that's pretty much what my goal is. I want to responsibly and stably scale up to a quality portfolio over time and not rush it, not be desperate, because I think a lot of the desperation that I had in my journey led to really bad decisions. And lastly, something I'm trying to tell myself that I think would have been helpful if I had, and I think might be helpful for a lot of other people out there, is what would your actions look like, and what actions would you take if you told yourself it would take 7 to 10 years to retire with real estate? Because a lot of people out there hate their jobs, want to get out of their jobs as soon as possible, and, you know, take very aggressive moves on, or put so much pressure on themselves to retire soon and quickly with real estate that they never take action from that pressure and those high expectations to hit home runs. And so I personally am now trying to say, what would it look like if it took me 7 to 10 more years to retire with real estate, staying at my W-2, and how do I build with quality? And that's where I'm trying to go, and not build a 10,000 unit empire.
I love that. So there's so much to pull out there. I love the beginning with the end in mind, right? So you have the North Star, you know where you're going. It's similar to what you said on the unit count too. You know, you can buy a 3 unit a year and you'll be fine. Like, right? Like that's all it takes. Buy these brick buildings that are in good shape, and like it will work out for you. I mean, Mark, we've had this convo several times. Like, and I don't understand, like, as investors, unit counts, what we all like defer to, like at a meetup, but it's like, it's the dumbest metric. I mean, it's probably impolite to be like, oh, what's your net worth, right? Like, that's also weird, but unit count is just such a bad metric, right? It makes you chase deals. It makes you, oh, I can buy a 12 unit in this area I don't know, or it's you know, low price per door. Like, it's just the wrong metric to be chasing.
Yeah, no, net income, I think, is the best way. I mean, that ends up being like you you can have 100 units, but if you only made $11,000 last year, your plan isn't working that great. You know what I mean? I think
absolutely.
That's important, but that's also a weird question to ask too. Like, hey, talk to me about your schedule leave from last year.
Well,
it's like the nice, polite thing we all defer to, but it sets the wrong tone, right? Especially for someone new to get into it. It's like, oh, I must get to 1,000 units then.
Well, I'll admit it. I don't think it's a bad thing to spur a conversation in these meetup groups. But like, I'll go to these groups or whatever, and people will sit there and say, "Hey, I got 12 units." I'm like, "All right, awesome. Now, are you making money? Talk to me about it." And a lot of times you get that. Not yet. This happened. I'm gonna do that. That's where you get these real raw conversations at these meetups when you just kind of challenge. Challenge not the right word, but you really kind of go a layer deeper on that topic, because people are proud about that. But then you make them really start talking about what their real things they're trying to overcome to turn those into a profitable portfolio.
Unit count, absolutely. And how many headlines or taglines all across the board in so many podcasts do you see of financial independence by 25, financial independence by 27? Like, how many people do you see in that situation? I truly hope I'm not coming in hot, but how many of those people do you see that have good health insurance, like, you know, have stable, non-lumpy income, are able to make, you know, significantly more? Like, they're not making more than you would make it, you know, your average job. And
a lot of them have very low costs of living. They don't have poor kids yet, or they want to be in the right schools and all that stuff. So a lot of those are like kind of premature. But so listen, I was financial free at 23. I could have quit for a decade and done nothing. But as soon as I started, like, it just all changes. A lot of it's relative.
Exactly.
Every situation is contextual. Mark, what do you got for the final comment here?
Well, I just want to say, you know, we started this podcast to add value to other people, and I think the show adds a lot of value, and it comes from a very real standpoint. One of the things that I think is going to make you you're successful already, and what's going to make you super successful the whole way down, and in anything you do, real estate or anything, is you learn the framework, you know, call it 50% of what you had to be done, and you're confident in call the other 30% that you have that you don't know yet, and then you knew that you're, again, back to the confidence, you're confident in that last 20% that you knew you get it figured out, or you knew that you knew you're strong enough to push through anything that came down the road. And it seems like, I mean, you took a lot of punches here, and I think we only dove into a handful of them, but you kept taking punches and you kept getting back up, which is kind of that going into it with that plan we just said that you sounds like you customized, and then be able to just continue to get back up after punch, and not just revert back to your day job and just say, you know, maybe I'll go get my MBA or whatever. You just keep it going. Like, you have a recipe for success. And I just want all the listeners out there to hear that you're never going to have 100% figured out. You're never going to eliminate 100% of the risk. There's always going to be risk. There's always going to be something that you didn't see coming, and you're always going to get punched. So you're just such a great poster child for what everyone needs to see out there that's maybe 0-1 right now, 0 units, and looking to get their first unit or their first building. So I love having you on here today, Ben, and I just appreciate it.
And taking it one more step, there's someone going through this right now. There's someone who didn't sleep last night because they're dealing with an eviction or whatever, right? Like, you're not alone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's awesome. All right, man, let's go to wrap up, dude. That was awesome. Let's close hard here. And if I know you, Ben, you've been prepared for these questions, so you're going to have awesome answers. So,
dude, let's do it, man.
Ben, what is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while so many other people wish they could continue to get punched and get back up?
I'd say I'm hungry, and I know my why. And my why is I want to be able to have the freedom to live a life doing the things I want to do. And I think I've stayed focused on my why, and I'm not smarter. I don't have a higher stamina for taking punches. I know my why, and I truly believe that, like, I don't have a competitive advantage. Long story short, I knew you were going to answer that, but I figure things out, and I know my why, but I'm not smarter. I'm not more analytical than anyone else out there. That's my answer.
Good stuff. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Do it. There's such an opportunity in Chicago where I think we sit at this very unique inflection point where we have appreciation and we have cash flow. Where else are you going to find that in the United States real estate market? And we're also a very resilient, recession-proof market too. And there's just so much opportunity in the city. Yeah, and it's yours to get after and grab. So take some action, don't learn for too long. Realize that real estate will punch you. Everyone gets punched and you will get up and you will crush it eventually.
All right. What do you do for fun?
Lakeview Run Club, man. Come out, join us. I absolutely love everything about that club and that community. Tell us about it. Where can people find more information on that? Lakeview Run Club on Instagram, Facebook. We have yet to make a TikTok. I'm not that good of a dancer. I don't want to embarrass myself there. But you can find us there. And yeah, it's all about community. I want to inspire people to move, be active, socialize, and get fresh air by providing that community element to run. And really want to say everyone's a runner. And honestly, as cheesy as this sounds, like I really wanted to add, I don't know, I want to continue to make Chicago a better city. And like, I hope that this club, plays a super, super small job in making this city something we're all proud of living at.
Running is so therapeutic. I just started running this past fall. I only started running because I hate running. I wanted to take on my hatred of running. Then I did 8 miles yesterday, and it's just there's a once you get that runner's high that everyone jokes about, it's a very therapeutic moment that you go into, and I go really deep. So it's awesome.
Hell yeah, Mark. That's no laughing matter. 8 miles that's what's up. Way to crush it, dude. Way to get after it.
All right. What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
Coach Carson, like I said, book on how to retire early with real estate investing. Brandon Turner's book on real estate investing. And also I will say, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I don't think I have ever read a book more than once. And that book just stuck with me and was a huge breakthrough on how to think about business and life. So cannot recommend that enough.
I don't know that one.
Tom, I thought I said it to you. I actually
Oh boy,
I have to back about 4 months ago. I listened to it when I was running, but no, that's an awesome book. And I think I actually I gave it to a couple of people I know that are like in their 20s. It's a great book to even pick up. Like the earlier, the better. Like there's a lot of like tangible lessons in that book.
Yes, sir.
All right. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource.
All right. So I'm going to cheat that question. I'm going to name 3. First person, without a doubt, hands down, is going to be Alan Sussman, my dad. He has been selling insurance for 30 years. His specialty is housing insurance, and he's been my agent for all of them. He actually insures thousands of units throughout the entire city of Chicago, and the guy loves insurance. I've never met anyone in my life that loves insurance. Would highly recommend reaching out. It is just the most boring, dull, one of the most boring, dull things out there, and the guy somehow manages to get adrenaline from talking about insurance policies. But anyway, you could just Google Northeast Insurance Solutions Northbrook. He'll show up. 2.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Awesome. 2, Juan Ignacio Gonzalez, aka Nacho. He will talk to people if they just want to learn more about the community back of the yards, if they want to get advice on certain properties that are good or bad. He's been a huge mentor to me. He also owns a contracting business called Legacy Construction. He's the fellow I mentioned that is opening up the coffee shop and yoga studio in back of the yards. And I mean, the man is truly a force for good in the neighborhood. He is gutting and putting what I would almost call luxury finishes on multifamily properties throughout the entire neighborhood of back of the yards. He is the guy to reach out to. Legacy Constructions on Instagram is the best way to reach out to him. And lastly, shout out Sam Abazari. He is a guy that has been through the thick of it too as a real estate investor, and he's also a mortgage broker and lender. I truly, truly believe that he wants to help people achieve financial freedom and will give them all the tools and information to succeed there.
Yeah, he's awesome. He forwards our all of our LinkedIn stuff. Like he's awesome.
Yep.
And a great person to network with on my side.
Absolutely.
That's great. We will link to all these in the show notes. So Ben, thank you so much. It's been a great episode. You'd mentioned Joey's episode before, a lot of flashbacks there. For those who haven't listened, that's episode 89, like just the real rawness of taking on these type of properties.
His tenant stole his car.
Still our best title.
Yep.
So Ben, how can our listeners learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Absolutely. So like you said at the beginning, I'm a realtor at, you can find me on Instagram at bsussman real estate. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Ben Sussman. If I can help you achieve financial freedom through real estate investing and helping you identify effective properties for that, let me know. I'd love to be of service as a realtor. And, I will also potentially be joining the leadership team for Windy City REI in Chicago. So reach out to me there. I've been talking to the three leaders there and would love to have people, be a part of that networking opportunity and community, and hopefully we'll see y'all there as well.
Good stuff. Mark, you ready for this fact?
I am ready for this fact, and it's going to be the person I'm going to play for today is Barry Volker out of Oak Park again. Bought a trucker hat just a few months ago. So Barry, thank you very much.
I am wearing said trucker hat.
Yes. That's the irony.
Not Barry's. I didn't steal it. All right. So we talked a lot about Back of the Yards. It's explored in detail in Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I think most of us read that in high school, right? That book hit the shelves in 1906. 6 months after it came out, purchase of domestic meat was said to drop by how much? And here are your options. 20%, 50%, 80%, or it did not drop till years later.
First off, it's so funny that I referred that book to somebody today. Like that's one of my favorite books. I actually read it a couple of years ago. I'll say.
See, if I would have known that, I would have gone a specific thing out of the book. But I figured you hadn't read it in 20 years, so I didn't want to.
No, I read. Yeah, so I would say meat dropped 20%.
Ben, what do you want to go with?
Let's take that middle road. I'm going to say 50%.
50% it is. 50% it is. So
Barry, you could thank Ben here. Barry, you win a $50 gift card from us. So
yeah, so he had aimed at he wanted to aim at how workers were being mistreated and just the long hours, like that was the intent of the book, but accidentally he said he went to hit America in the heart with that story, but instead accidentally hit them in the stomach.
Well, that book is so true to like just that neighborhood, the housing stock, the type of housing stock. Like there's just so much like history in that book. It's actually fiction book, but I mean it's real kind of based on.
Yeah, he went undercover for like 8 weeks to get inspiration or whatever it was.
Yep. So, all right, that's awesome. Congrats, Barry, again. Can send you out your gift card there. You could thank Ben. I was no help to you there today, but Ben, we appreciate you coming on. Tom, thanks as always. Listeners, we have our 200th episode bash coming up here, and that is March 9th at the Country Club. So we'll put in the show notes. There should still be tickets available by the time this airs, but if not, reach out to us. Maybe there's some way we can sneak you in. But it is limited, and you have to buy tickets in advance, so please make sure you check it out. Ben, thank you. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.